So today I'm going to give you a background about what digital investigation around the critical infrastructure means, and give you an introduction about some of the incidents and or about the data, also about the life cycle of converting the data. Maybe most of you will be aware of that and might be interested because most of you guys are working in big data and machine learning. Also, I will be talking about the training of the incident response team, especially if we've got like red team and blue team. And also we'll be discussing about digital forensic challenges in collection phase, data analysis phase, and reporting phase. Also, we will be going through some of the implementation and analysis process of one of the open source intelligence software, which called Multigo. And at the end, I'm going to summarize our points. Are you ready, guys? Okay, let's start with the background. First of all, if we're talking about the forensic data or data in general, we're talking about lots and lots of sources that we can get information from. Like, for example, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, any other application which can be traced or tracked by conducting link analysis process. This process can help a digital forensic investigator to provide more data about the suspected people, especially if you don't want to provide much more information about your target. In this case, we're dealing with the gray box approach. In case we are dealing with the gray box approach, the ethical hacker or the digital forensic investigator is having some information about the target system or about the target person, which one that we need to approach. In this paper, I'm going to investigate the activities that can be done by the suspect employee. Like, for example, someone is working with keystrokes, and we need to follow what he's doing. Also, we need to get an access to his webcam. Also, we need to get an access to the current process and all documents in his machine, without even giving him a notice, so we can make sure that we would be able to have a full control on his machine before he deleted or he modify any of the data. Or what we can do for this process is called link analysis, to confirm all participating parties or contacting person use the communication. The proposed solution on this paper was to identify the scope of the investigation to limit the results. Means that not all results can be used in our analysis or our report, but we need to perform filtration process. The filtration process would be able to help the forensic investigator to get the most credible data for to be presented to the court at the end of the process. Here is a general introduction about the critical data, the life cycle of how to secure the data and what can we do with the data. Like, for example, we've got like digital data sources that we can get digital evidence from log files if we're dealing with servers or all of this stuff. We can get from log files or deleted files. Deleted files can be retained or can be recovered by some of software like FTK or Encase, but these are static software which has some limitations. Not all deleted files can be recovered. That's why combination of these approaches will be used. Also from mobile phones, from tablets, from laptop, from any other phone, any documents. Also from engineering workstation. Engineering workstation is a part of critical infrastructure because engineering workstation is a platform. Like, for example, if we're talking about nuclear facilities, like uranium enrichment facility, they are having one part for engineering workstation. They are dealing with programmable logic controllers and historians and all of the SCADA system or supervisory control and data acquisition system. Also, we're talking here about the control system devices, which, as I was talking before about the programmable logic controllers, because the problem here with the programmable logic controllers is they are using different programming language, which is called ladder. Ladder can get more information about the systems and the procedure which should be followed in case of any changes of the behavior of the system. This all about the sources. Where can we get our digital evidence? Also for the classifications, in case if we are talking about large volumes of data, we're talking about the unstructured and semi-structured and structured data. These data has to be visualized. It means that it has to be in a form of information. I need to understand what kind of data am I having now. That's why we are implementing some of the tools, like for example Multigo, which is the case in my presentation, which can be used for analysis and defining some links and defining some communication with other people, and in a form of visual effect. After getting all the digital evidence, or after getting data sources, collecting all information from everywhere, what can we do? How to manage and how to store this data? We've got different types, like data management system or data retention policy or big data solution, like for example Hadoop. Hadoop is also one of the solutions that can be implemented in critical infrastructure. And at the final stage is data security. How can we secure and make sure that we are monitoring and doing maintenance properly in our data? Also, we're talking about the policies, we're talking about the encryption and decryption, privacy, and to make sure that the authorized people can access only resources based on their access levels. This all about the life cycle. We've got different types of the data when it comes to digital evidence. Physical data evidence, if we're talking about the memory stick, if we're talking about the hard disk, if we're talking about any materialistic data that we can have it in hand. Logical data copy, it means that we can get digital evidence from the cloud, digital evidence from somewhere that we can access remotely. Data acquisition format, different formats of digital evidence, like from different types of files, like PDF or Excel, or like for example of some of special files like ladder logic programming language. Also command line acquisition, which can be used for timestamp in order to confirm what time the incident has happened. Second part, we're talking about the training of the incident response team. First of all, we need to differentiate between the different types of incident response team. We've got two types. First one is red team, and second one is blue team. Blue team is the defensive one. It's trying to defend our infrastructure. It's trying to make sure that vulnerabilities, all vulnerabilities have been covered, and they are conducting a vulnerability assessment regularly on regular basis. And for the red team, they are working as a pen tester or penetration tester, like ethical hackers. They are trying to hack the system or to hack the infrastructure to make sure that they are not able to perform it, to make sure that no one can initiate a backdoor into our system and gain unauthorized access and can get access to our sensitive information. According to this graph, we can see that a relationship between the data and understanding and data and correcting, which means the more you get information, the more you will get the wisdom, the more you will be able and aware of how to deal with the data, of how to deal with the system, and how to make it secure. Like for example, many of us getting like a spam email, and if you don't have the proper training or proper awareness of what kind of spam emails you might be receiving, of course you get to open that email, which is totally wrong and is going to affect your system. If we're talking about some of the challenges, we might be talking about automation. We've got different types of system process. Like we've got the manual and automated tools. Manual tools, it means like for example, if we are If we are, for example, installing Windows, you can install it manually on each machine. But if we're using unattended installation or like zero type installation, it means that everything can be automated. Here is the problem: if we are getting everything automated, we might be losing some of the points or some of the steps. What kind of procedure have been done in this part? Also, volatility. It's a problem because some of the information can be available only when your machine is on. But when machine shut down, you won't be able to get access to all of this data anymore. Data mingling is as well. If we're talking about the data mingling, one of the big challenges when dealing with the large volumes of data, because we're talking about the data identification, data processing, data security, all of this stuff is really hard to manage. Also, if we're talking about the challenges in the data analysis phase, here is the second part. We're trying to analyze the data, but some of the challenges, like I don't have access to what extension of this file to identify it. Like for example, some extension files are not recognizable in some of the static software, like for example FTK and Incase. If we're talking about the ladder logic, it's not recognized in this software, which cause lots of problems, because in digital forensic investigations, and we need to have access to all extension files, or all files have to be identified, which was one of the problematic issues in the case of Iranian nuclear facility. Also, the time mismatch. Time mismatch can be differed from system to another if we are not working with a unified time zone or time system. Also, multi-tenancy and multiple cloud service providers. If we're dealing with different providers, not everyone can provide accurate results. So it means like we are dealing with lots of data, but we need to go for a further process, which is filtration process, to confirm that this data is correct or this data are valid. Also, we've got another problem of the ownership. Some of the systems don't give much attention to ownership of the data. Like for example, if you're writing, if you're having a file Word, of course you can find your name as the owner of this file, but in some systems or some files they don't have that. So it's really hard to identify who owns this file, who modified this file. Also, live forensics. When we're talking about live forensics, we're talking about different types of digital forensic investigation. We've got two types here: physical forensics and live or remote forensics. Physical forensics, it means that your machine is shut down and you are now conducting the digital forensic investigation. But in case we're doing live forensic investigation, one of the cases could be Hadoop platform. We can conduct the remote access to that system and to perform live acquisition or live data acquisition. The reason why, because that system can be accessed by the administrator, and we can get all the information like remotely and on the spot. If we're talking about the reporting, the only issue or the only challenge of reporting is the documentation. Documentation has to be maintained properly, has to include all information about the installations, about the configuration, about the hardware, about the elements whose modified behavior might affect the original equipment. If we're talking about the implementation, we've got here some examples of the results. Like from the Multigo, we've got the name of the suspect employee. We've got some of the incoming and outgoing relationships with some of the communications like email addresses and IP addresses, all of this information which can be traced. So we can identify to which extensive level that person has the relationship. Also, we can get all information in a different format. So you can also get an access by email, what email addresses he's contacting and what the content of this email is. We can go deeper to find also the servers. We can even go more deeper to get all the information and contact details of the of communications that relevant to that person. At the end, we were trying to identify all the challenges based on previous case studies in order to avoid any such incidents in the future. That proposed tool can be used and it has been evaluated in the design virtual lab, and testbed was made based on a controlled environment, so we can make sure that all the data privacy can maintain properly. Thank you so much. I have finished, and I'm looking after your questions if you've got some.